This young girl had an accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Nothing could have prepared her for the journey that lay ahead, but one thing kept her going. It was the only thing that gave her a reason to live. And when all hope seemed lost, this girl did the unthinkable. Our story begins in a small town in Florida where 17-year-old Kira Johnson was your typical teenager. She loved hanging out with friends, going to parties, listening to music, and most of all, dancing. In fact, it almost felt like they were two different people when Kira danced, and no one knew why she loved dancing so much. The answer, however, went back to when she was just 3 years old. Kira's mother, Mary, had always been a professional ballet dancer. She had even danced with the famous New York City Ballet. But unfortunately, she had to stop after getting injured. However, she passed on her love of dancing to her daughter, who had started taking dance classes at the age of 2. It wasn't long before everyone in town was talking about how talented Kira was, and her mother couldn't be more proud. But then tragedy struck. When Kira was 16, her parents got into a terrible car accident. Her father was killed instantly, and her mother suffered serious injuries. Kira, who was in the hospital for several months, managed to make a full recovery. But her mother wasn't so lucky. Although she survived the accident, she was now paralyzed from the waist down. It was a devastating blow for Kira, but she tried her best to stay positive because she knew that her mother needed her strength. So instead of throwing herself into a deep depression, she took care of her mother as best as she could and continued going to school. Still, there were times when she felt like giving up, but the thought of what her mother would say always kept her going. "If anything ever happens to me, you must continue to live your life for me." Her mother had told her, "You must do the things I was unable to do so that I can live through you." Kira knew that her mother was right, but that didn't make it any easier. After all, she had only been a teenager when the accident happened, and it was supposed to be her time to have fun. Instead, she spent her days taking care of her mom and her nights crying herself to sleep. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever, so she decided to take action. One day, she went to see a doctor and asked if her mother would ever walk again. "I'm sorry, but I don't think she will," the doctor said. "She's paralyzed from the waist down, and there isn't much we can do about it." Kira was heartbroken, but that only made her even more determined to fulfill her promise. So she started working out. At first, it was hard, but slowly she started seeing results. Then she began working on her flexibility and learned how to use her upper body to help her balance. Slowly but surely, she transformed her body into a finely tuned machine. And one day, she realized she was ready for the next step. She wanted to dance again, but how could she dance without being able to move her legs? She tried using a wheelchair, but it just didn't feel right. Then she remembered something her mother once told her. Dancing isn't just about moving your feet. It's about expressing yourself. It's about communicating with the world around you. You can dance anywhere, anytime, as long as you have music in your heart. With that, Kira began practicing in her room. She started by moving her upper body and practicing some arm movements she had learned when she was younger. Then she added some facial expressions to convey the emotions she wanted to express. And finally, she started moving her fingers in ways that expressed the rhythm of the music. It took months of practice, but eventually she was ready to perform. She invited some of her closest friends over and asked them to give her an honest critique. At first, they were all very quiet, but then one of them finally spoke up. "That was amazing," she said. "I couldn't believe my eyes. You were dancing without using your legs. How is that possible?" Kira blushed, but she was secretly very proud of herself. She knew that she wasn't dancing the way she used to, but she had found a new way to express herself. And that was all that mattered. Soon, word of her unique dance spread throughout the town, and one day she was invited to perform at a local charity event. She was very nervous at first, But then she saw the faces of the audience and it gave her confidence. As soon as the music started playing, she moved into position and began her dance. She started off slow, moving her arms and flowing from side to side. Then she added some facial expressions and finger movements, which conveyed the emotion behind the piece. As she danced, she closed her eyes, letting the music take over her body, and for a moment, it was like she was flying. She could feel the beat of the drums in her chest, and the melody danced in her fingers. Forgetting everything around her, she surrendered to the music completely. When she finished, the audience was completely silent. No one had ever seen anything like this before. Then, as if someone had started a fire, applause erupted throughout the room. Everyone stood up and cheered as Kira took her bow. She was overwhelmed with gratitude and couldn't believe how much they had enjoyed her performance. From that day forward, Kira's life changed completely. She was no longer the girl who had been stuck in a wheelchair. She was a dancer. She continued performing all over the country and even appeared on TV shows. Through it all, she never forgot her mother, who was her inspiration for everything. In fact, she even named her dance company after her mother and dedicated every performance to her. Soon, her dance became known as the Dance of Hope. And it wasn't long before people from all over the world were coming to see her perform. One day, while looking through social media, she saw a video that made her heart melt. It was a young girl who had been paralyzed in an accident and was learning to dance again. Kira reached out to her and invited her to come and see her perform. "I want to show her that it's possible to dance without using your legs. I want to show her that nothing can stop her from achieving her dreams," she says, and that's exactly what she did. When the young girl saw Kira dancing, her eyes lit up with wonder. "It's true," she whispered. "It is possible." From that day on, the two girls became friends and they practiced together every day. They pushed each other to be better and never give up on their dreams. And now, years later, they're still best friends and performing all over the world. Kira's story proves that it's possible to overcome even the most difficult challenges if you never give up on your dreams. Even when faced with the possibility of never walking or dancing again, Kira refused to let this define her. She put in the hard work and dedication to learn a new way to dance that would allow her to honor her promise to her mother. And in doing so, she not only fulfilled her promise, but also inspired countless others along the way. We hope Kira's story has inspired you to chase your dreams, no matter how impossible they may seem. Do you know someone who has overcome great odds to achieve their dreams? We would love to hear their stories. Please share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more uplifting stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.